Some people drown in water. Others drown in grief. There's a lake not too far from here. If you follow the old logging road through the trees, past where the trail signs stop and the map gives up, you will find it. It's small, surrounded by thick forest, and completely still, even on windy nights. It's the kind of place that feels like it's holding its breath. The locals call it Mirror Lake, not because the water is especially beautiful or still, though it is, but because people say it shows you things. Not reflections, not exactly, more like versions. Versions of yourself, of what's coming. Most of the time, the lake's quiet, empty, the kind of place where even birds don't go. But every so often, maybe once every decade or so, someone sees her. They say she appears near the shoreline, standing just at the edge of the trees. She never moves, never speaks. She just stares. Her dress is always white, but tattered now, and soaked like she's just come out of the water. Long hair hangs over her face, and no one sees her eyes, but they say they can feel her looking at them. And when she does appear, something bad always follows. The story goes back to the 1950s. Her name was Lillian Hart, 23 years old. She lived in a small farmhouse not far from the lake. And her father was a preacher. Her mother made dresses by hand. Lillian was well liked, soft-spoken, and never caused trouble. When she met a man named Thomas, the town watched the whole courtship unfold like something out of a storybook. He was older, but charming, handsome, maybe a bit quiet, but devoted to her. They got engaged after 6 months. The wedding was planned for July, a summer ceremony on the lakeside, with wildflowers and fresh bread from the bakery, and lace stitched by Lillian's own mother. She wanted to be married on the dock, just as the sun set behind the trees. Everything was set. The guests were seated. The music was playing. But Thomas never showed up. No one knows exactly what happened. Some say he ran off. Others whisper that he was seen leaving town the night before, bags in hand, never to return. There was no letter, no explanation, just silence. What people remember most is what Lillian did next. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stood at the altar, still in her dress, staring out across the lake. And then, without a word to anyone, not to her mother, not to her father, not to the friends who tried to stop her, she walked down the dock, veil trailing behind her, and stepped into the water. She didn't struggle, didn't scream, just walked until the water covered her completely. And she was gone. They searched, of course, for weeks. Divers, search dogs, even townsfolk walking hand in hand along the shore, trying to feel for her body. But nothing turned up. No dress, no shoes, no corpse. Just a single scrap of white lace, found tangled among the reeds. And the lake was quiet after that. But things changed. A year later, a newlywed couple decided to take a canoe out onto Mirror Lake. It was a warm August night. The water was calm, but halfway across, something went wrong. The boat capsized. The husband's body was recovered 2 days later, lungs full of lake mud. The wife's body turned up nearly a week after, but not where it should have. It was found deep in the woods, 20 feet from the shoreline, her arms bent at unnatural angles. Her dress was ripped in the same way Lillian's lace had been found. And she wasn't wearing shoes. It might have ended there, written off as a tragedy. But then came the others. In 1974, a teenager named Kayla Simmons disappeared while camping near the lake. She had been gathering firewood just before dusk. Her friends waited for hours, thinking she had wandered too far. Her flashlight was found along the edge of the lake, still warm, and her tracks ended at the water. She was never seen again. In 1983, a park ranger claimed to have seen a woman in a white dress, standing just behind the tree line while he did a routine patrol. When he tried to call out, she stepped back and vanished between the trees. That same night, a group of hikers lost one of their own, a man named Sean, who wandered off to find a place to relieve himself and never returned. His friends claimed they heard footsteps outside their tent all night, but were too afraid to open the flap. In the morning, they found muddy prints circling their camp, but no prints leading in. And then there's the mirror story, the one that gave the lake its name. It was a camper, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. He came out here alone, just to get away from work, from family, maybe from something worse. He pitched a tent near the lake, cooked his dinner, and sat by the water after sunset. He said he was thinking about going for a swim when he saw her. Not in front of him in the lake. She was behind him, but only in the reflection. Standing still in the water, her white dress floating around her, her face obscured. He turned immediately. Nothing there. But when he looked back at the surface of the water, Her reflection was still there, and this time, so was his. Only in the reflection, he wasn't sitting upright. He was floating, face down, pale and still, with something holding his ankle. He packed up that night and ran. He told the story once, in a bar, then never again. People say he doesn't sleep near water anymore, and won't go near mirrors either. The legend says that when Lillian walked into the lake, she wasn't trying to die. Not exactly. She was looking for something. A place where things made sense. Where grief couldn't reach her. But grief doesn't let go. It soaks in. It waits. And now she waits too. Sometimes she weeps. Sometimes she smiles. But she always watches. They say if you hear someone calling your name near Mirror Lake, especially if it sounds like someone you love, don't answer. And if you find yourself standing at the edge of the lake, just before dark, and feel something tugging at you, not your body, but your thoughts, your memories, your regrets, walk away, because the water remembers, and she's still waiting. Not everything that watches you wants to be seen. There's a stretch of forest up north, where the trees grow too close together and the canopy blocks out most of the light, even during the day. It's old forest, untouched in places, heavy with moss and silence. The kind of place that feels wrong to walk through. Not because of what you see, but because of what you feel watching you. Hunters call it Dead Pines Hollow. Hikers avoid it completely. It's not on most maps anymore, and for good reason. The last few trails leading in were officially closed for safety, though if you ask anyone who lives nearby, they'll tell you there's another reason. An older one. There's a story about that place. Not one you'll read online. Not even something you'll find in an old book. The story only ever gets told face to face, around fires, late at night. Just like this. They call it the legend of the man in the tree. And it starts with a name. William Granger, a field researcher from the early 1900s, who came to study tree rings, soil layers, harmless science. He was fascinated by the forest, said it was untouched, pristine, said it held secrets no one had found yet. He wrote in his journal that he felt a strange calm there, like the trees were listening. But after a while, his notes changed. He started saying he felt watched, that He would wake up in the middle of the night to find small piles of dirt beside his cot, shaped like footprints. He said he kept hearing whispering when no one else was around, and wrote that the shadows between the trunks seemed to move, even when the wind was still. But the most disturbing entry came just before he disappeared. He wrote, "I finally saw it. It's not a man. It just wears the shape of one." Granger vanished 3 days later. His journal was found at his abandoned camp, half buried under pine needles. There were no signs of struggle, no blood, just claw marks on the trees surrounding his site. Long, thin, carved too deep for any animal, as if something with fingers had watched from every direction. Over the years, others have gone missing in that same stretch of woods. But what's always the same is what happens before someone disappears. The first sign is the silence. The birds stop singing. The wind goes still. You will feel it before you notice it, like a heavy pressure settling behind your eyes. You will keep walking, thinking maybe it's just the weather or your nerves. But then you will look up and realize the trees are wrong. They're too still, too symmetrical. And you think you see a man standing between the branches. He won't move. He won't blink. You will only see his outline, high up in the tree, too high for any human to have climbed. And his arms will be stretched along the branches like they're part of him, as if he grew into the tree, or it grew into him. Some people say he looks like bark until you stare too long. Then you realize the bark is skin, dry, cracked, and his head turns slowly toward you, like it's been asleep a long time and is just now waking up. There's a rumor about what he is, that he was once a man, long before the forest grew, long before any of us were here. He was a druid, a guardian, someone who gave himself to the woods, not in spirit but in body, root and blood, bone and leaf. And over time, the forest forgot he was ever human. And now he waits and watches. Those who claim to have survived say he follows them after they see him. Not physically, at least not at first, but in dreams, in the corner of windows, in the gaps between bookshelves. He's tall, thin. You will recognize the shape of his limbs before you see his face. And once you do, it's already too late to run. One hiker, a woman named Danielle, came back from Dead Pines Hollow 3 years ago. She was part of a trail marking project and was never supposed to go that deep. She says she only got lost for 2 hours, but when she came back, her fingernails were torn and black with dirt, her eyes bloodshot. She wouldn't speak for days. When she finally talked, she kept saying the same thing over and over. It watched me from the trees. She never hiked again, moved to a city, an apartment with no plants and no wooden furniture. She won't explain why, but she always checks the corners of the ceiling before she goes to sleep. She claims that she can still hear the creaking, like bark splitting, even when there's no wind. Some say the man in the tree isn't evil, that he's a protector of the old forest, and if you respect the woods, he will let you pass. But others think he's something else. Not a guardian, not even a man, just a piece of something ancient, something the forest grew around to keep hidden. And every time someone wanders too far into the woods, it wakes again. So, if you ever find yourself walking under a canopy so thick you can't see the sky, and everything around you is still, do not look up. Because if you see him, he will see you. And once he sees you, you will never leave the forest the same.